You watching Kenroy Batiste TV. Click, view, convenience around the clock.
Hi, my name is Neela, and you are watching Grenada Personality on Kenroy Batiste TV. Today, I have a personality with me, Mr. Tony Julien from the Grenada Broadcasting Network. Welcome, Tony.
And so good to be here.
Can I call you Tony?
Oh yes, nothing else.
It sounds good calling you Tony. I don't want to be too formal on Grenada Personality. I'm sure you want to hear so much more about this personality here, this Grenadian personality. Indeed, he's one of the greats, in my opinion. He probably might have something different to say, but we'll chat with him and see what he has to tell us today on Kenroy Batiste TV. So welcome again, and tell us a little about your work as a broadcaster here in Grenada.
Well, starting from the very beginning, that goes back, 1986, October.
I was born.
All right then, so look at that, that's my point. And I just gotten out of school. Quite frankly, I was not too sure what to do. I had not done very well in school. English, though, I could do blind, and come out with an A kind of thing. So I thought of the media. I applied to, back then, what was Radio Grenada, and as a desk editor. That's what I wanted to be, what I thought I'd do well in. Got there, did the job interview, got my handshake and everything, welcome on board. Next thing I know, they're leading me into the studio. It wasn't even classic radio back then, that's to tell you.
Right.
And they're showing me Harold Paisady in front of a microphone. And Harold is carrying on and greeting people on in different parts of Grenada, so. I knew Harold from before that and everything, and kind of like, well, all right, what's this about? What am I doing here? Or is this a station tour? So the manager of the time, Alan Palmer, says to me, well, Tony, I want you to observe it well, take a very good look, take in everything, because you'll be replacing Harold. So I swing round at him and say, what you talking about? Well, Harold is going on study leave in 2 weeks' time, and, well, we need you on board. So I applied to be a desk editor. Oh, well, yes, but anyway, it'll be a temporary thing. Now that is a word that I became or learned to become very suspicious of. In the media anyway, temporary, or just for the time. Because that very often turned out in my career to be full-time. And so said, so done.
Right.
From that time, I have been an announcer. From announcing, two other positions worked themselves in, newscasting, and also, very briefly, I was chief librarian for the music library. That's something I liked from the start. Their station in Montrouge, it had been bombed out. They brought on to the new location on Scott Street because everything had just been piled into the building and so. They never really had a chance to properly rearrange things. So I went into the two librarians at the time, very hard-working young ladies, and one of them sadly is no longer with us. But I said, hey, if you'll let me, I'll help you rearrange your stuff, get it back in the order you used to have it and so. And my interest in the library was born. So it's not just been announcing. And I have to say too, that as much as it began for me as an announcer, it's a role I have struggled with ever since.
The announcer role.
The announcer role. Because I'm not a public person. And people would say, well, you certainly picked the wrong career,
Right.
didn't you? But as I highlighted to you as it started, I didn't pick it. I applied to be a desk editor. And you, Mr. Manager, shoved me onto the air.
It's ironic because you're on Grenada personality. You know, we're highlighting your personality, and you're not the
Kind of
you know,
thing,
you're
kind of
kinda,
thing.
you know, the
Up to
reason.
now, I'm a very withdrawn person.
Right.
And to hear me read a newscast, I guess you'd never think so. But of course, I have the protection of the scripts, if you want to put it like that. You put in front of me what it is I'm to say, and I'll deal with it.
Right.
You know, I'll to the best of my ability. I had some wonderful help, some wonderful guidance along the way. People like Ashley Hines, I'll remain indebted to. He was one of the technical operators. He was an audio man, outside broadcasts and everything. And he saw how I was struggling. I'll come out and say it, you know. He said, Tony, come on, you could do this. Now, to begin with, I wouldn't even touch the studio equipment. I mean it. And the equipment we had back then in '86, like I say, that was salvaged from the
Right.
Mon Rouge thing. To call it basic is an understatement, and I wouldn't even touch that. I'm just not technologically minded. And he said, Tony, you can do it. I will stand with you in the studio. You will sit behind the console and you will do it. I will tell you what to do, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And as much as it sounds step by step and basic and baby steps, that's how it was. When you hear, and this is the evening edition of news, I'm Tony Julien.
That voice.
That did not come overnight. Let me tell you for the news. Bernard Graham, he used to be in our newsroom, and again, God rest his soul, I miss him tremendously. He's no longer with us. He was the one who first got me interested in newscasting. Something called reading blind. Said, Tony, you're in the business now. One thing I want you to do. You walk into a room and you see a newspaper.
Pick it
You
up and
go to that paper, you pick it up, and you start reading out
loud. Right.
Anything. Don't you read through the article, then start again reading out loud.
Just
You pick it up and you read out loud. I have never forgotten that lesson. Never. So if a breaking story is handed in while I'm reading the news and so, I can handle it because of that training. But that was for the reading part.
Right.
For the broadcasting part, that is totally over to Ashley Hines. You pick up a newspaper and you say to a friend or something, you call out, hey, John, you ain't hear this? And you start reading the article out to him. That's one thing to do. It's another thing to take a script into a studio, sit in front of a microphone and read it, not just to a country full of Grenadians, because remember, we are now on the internet.
Exactly.
When I read evening news, and I'm not boasting, it's stating a fact. I am reading to you in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. I'm reading to you throughout the Caribbean. I am reading to you in the States, in England. We have Grenadians in Germany. We have them in Switzerland, and I'm talking regular listeners. We hear from them time to time. A couple of them I've met. They've come to Grenada and they've asked to meet me. You know, not me alone. But they say, by the way, is Tony Julien also in?
Right.
You know, and I'm called out, you know, and we listen to you in such and such a place, so. So when you realize you have all of that on your shoulders, it is vital that you have the right person behind you. And that's what Ashley Hines was. As a matter of fact, he still is.
Right.
And so we'll still call up. He's no longer with us. He's left us and everything. But that station is his baby in
Right.
so many ways. And he'll call me. He'll say, you know, I hear you read the news the other day, so. And you said this, and thing. You know, wonderful. That's what you need. You know, unfortunately, there are broadcasters who actually resent that. Don't correct them. I am called up sometimes in the studio when I'm on duty, and somebody would call up and say, wait now, who is that who read that news the other day, so. I want you to tell them something for me. It's the last thing I would do. Not everybody welcomes a criticism. I won't call the names of other broadcasters who've been in the business even longer than I, but one of them in particular. He said, Tony, the same thing you said there. You think I go in and correcting anybody these days? He said, you joking, man. Let them make their mistake. Yeah. If they want, they'll come, they'll ask me, and wonderful. As long as you ask me, my opinion is yours.
But wouldn't that hamper the development of the media arts in Grenada? Because I'm thinking if you want the arts to go further, you would, try to help those who are coming up. So wouldn't that hamper that?
I'll tell you something about that directly. And it goes back to what I have just said. Yes, but who is hampering it? The broadcasters themselves who need the correction, or the broadcasters who can give the correction.
Right.
If the broadcasters who need the correction don't want you correcting them, all you are going to build is a gap between yourselves, kind of thing. And it's not just in a studio that you have to work together.
Okay.
You have to see each other almost every day, kind of thing, and associate in other ways and work together.
Right.
So when this younger broadcaster is feeling like he always telling me what to do and think what I'm doing wrong and so.
Right.
And it is sad but true. And you recognize it in a lot of our young people. I am not coming down on the cases of youth because there are very talented young people out there. Very. But you find in so many areas, broadcasting included, correction and guidance seem to be less and less welcome.
Right.
And maybe that's because of how many of us have been thrown into this career.
Maybe that is a valid point. But we do have to take a break, so we will return in a few minutes. You are watching Kenroy Baptiste TV. This is Grenada Personality.
You watching Kenroy Baptiste TV. Click, view, convenience around the clock.
And we are back. And we are talking with Mr. Tony Julien from the Grenada Broadcasting Network. And before we left off, we were talking about training for persons in the media and it, not being able to take criticism, being a hindrance to the development of the media arts in Grenada. And it is certainly something that we need to think about because we do want it to develop. We do want to get to the standard, the BBC standard, or at least I do, and I'm sure you have that aim to, to develop the media arts. So what I'm thinking is the training. Are there enough training for persons who are involved in media arts today and who would like to go on to further their studies in media arts?
There is definitely enough. It is available, and we have tremendous media figures right here in the Caribbean. Hey, a lot of them have been from Grenada. Remember that GBN, formerly GBC, formerly Radio Grenada, formerly Radio Free Grenada, formerly Radio Grenada, back to that, and then back to WIBS. So that shows you the history of broadcasting right here in Grenada. WIBS was the Windward Island Broadcasting Service, and it was based in Grenada. So we had tremendous figures in media. And so all of that, their standards and their training have been handed down in one way or another. But I have found them becoming less and less available. I waited, let's see, about 7 years. I was already in broadcasting for about 7 years before I got a 2-week course at Caramac in Jamaica. That's the best thing that happened to me in terms of formal training. Note I said formal in my career in broadcasting. That 2 weeks revolutionized my approach to script delivery. All the breathing, the phrasing, the enunciation, you know, that kind of thing. In terms of the attention, it goes back to caring co-workers, like, as I say, the best one for me being Ashley Hines.
Right.
And I don't mean to sound selfish. The number of people who can say, admit to having passed through people like him, and the advancements that they have made and so, are because they've been because of others, their co-workers reaching out to them and everything like that. So that even when you don't have the formal training, you can have the guidance of your co-workers. But again, you need to show that it's something that you are going after,
Right.
that you are not going to resent. When I think of how I started in the news, for example, like I told you earlier, Bernard Graham, he pointed me to it and said it was something he thought that, yes,
You would
I
be
could,
good at,
yeah.
yeah.
But here's how it started with me. I started recording news updates. An update is not supposed to be any longer than 5 minutes. So when you played Tony Julien with a news update on the air, the very first ones I did were recorded. From recording, I went slowly into reading live news updates. Then I went into co-reading. That's something that you really don't hear that much about in Grenada. We've started it very recently again in GVN for midday news. And you read, or I would have read with a more experienced broadcaster like the same Bernard Graham or so. And from there, you would very slowly go on to reading midday news for yourself. And of course, the highest level would be you delivering your own evening newscast.
Like an anchor.
Kind of thing.
Okay. So you do get that, you have that step that you
That's
have
right.
to, because I do know about cold reading, because with my acting training, I had to do cold readings for auditions, and you go in and the director gives you a script and he says, read this, I want to see how well you can handle this character.
Right.
So I do know that you have to be able to articulate properly, and a lot of times your eye contact has to be, you know, on point. And you do see a lot of that as well with the Arts Festival. It's not very you know, active now, but with the Arts Festival, you do see a lot of monologue readings and poetry readings and so on. So I could see journalism being something that we do need to develop here in Grenada. We kind of do have that start, but sometimes it's kind of, you see the same thing over and over. And I think we were talking about, you know, people diversifying, especially in the media, you know, and you mentioned about the radio stations. We have a lot of radio stations in Grenada. We even have more than Jamaica, like you said, but they're all doing the same thing. So what can you say about that? We do need that diversification, yes, but we also need that training, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Well, in a bit of fairness, a lot of them are doing the same thing, especially in terms of the entertainment side of things. I like what I'm hearing on more than a couple of the stations in terms of news. I must say I'm impressed. They go out there, they get the information, and they deliver. Entertainment, and maybe I do have a certain biasness. I'm well fitted when it comes to classic radio.
Right.
I am a total old man with my
I
music
mean, we
and
all
so.
have our biases, because I would run home just to watch GBN News. I don't watch anything else because I think they have a higher standard. You know, it might be something different for somebody else. You know, for, let's say, CC6. I know who, you know, work on CC6. You know, but I would run home to see GBN News because I think it's more substantial. And I'm sure we all have our different, you know, different biasness towards certain stations and so on. So I can't, you know, I have to agree with you that we do have our biases. That's true. In terms of technological advancement, how would you say that has changed you or has helped you with, you know, broadcasting?
I would say that along with the announcing, which like I told you I did not set out to do, that has been one of the worst fights. And it's sad, no, I'm admitting right there, I have my own attitudes. I resist certain things. So as much as I'm talking about younger people, you know, who seem to be very guarded about getting criticism from other people, I am very guarded about getting the way in terms of technology, getting used to it, opening myself up to flowing with it properly and everything like that. Because of that good start with Heinzo, as we call him, you know, I was able to move on to new equipment that came in. You have to remember, when I started, we were still using cart machines, not CDs. We were still using reels, not CDs, you know, and there weren't any computers around, kind of, you know. Those came very shortly after, yes. But when they came, I was very nervous about it. You know, I forget there's a sort of phobia for people who hate being in the same room where there's a computer. I forget the term for it, but once upon a time, maybe you even think I was not bordering on it, you know, but could well understand why a person would have such a phobia. So in the beginning, it was that bad for me. But to now look at my job on an everyday basis and see myself without two computers in the studio, something starts going wrong with one of them. They freeze up and everything, especially 5 minutes before your newscast and thing, and you start to go frantic, you know. You want to reach into the computer and kill something that is, you know, limiting what it's supposed to be doing and everything like that. Yeah, I've come a long way technologically and everything. But it's a shame in looking back that I didn't let it happen a lot more smoothly, a lot more quickly.
But I mean, criticism is good. I think criticisms help us to develop ourselves more, to be better at what we are doing. And I'm sure that you and other broadcasters would want to get better. I think that should be an aim for all of us, to get better at what we are now. You know, it's good to be good, but better is always best, you know. What advice do you have for somebody like me who might be interested in becoming a broadcaster, or, you know, the younger ones, people in college who would, you know, want to aspire to be like you? Because I'm sure you have fans, you might not know of them, but I'm sure there are people out there who look up to Mr. Tony Julien. I certainly recognize you by that voice. I've never met you before, but that voice, there's something magical about that voice. And every time you come on, there's this, wow, you know, I want to do something like that one day. So what advice do you have for people like us?
Okay, first off, never think that it's something that you cannot excel at. All right? Of course, yes, you should be given an audition. That's something I find is disappearing.
Yeah. It's imperative to have that.
You should have it. I had my audition. It was terrible, but they spotted certain potential. You know, praise the Lord for that. And so don't give up once you get through that audition. Stop beating yourself down because you don't sound like this person, like that person, like the other. If I go on with a major newscast and I'm sounding like anyone else but Tony Julien, as far as I'm concerned, I'm wasting my time. Too many of us want to be like this one, want to be like the other one. The Lord created each of us in a very unique way, and that was for a reason, broadcasting included. All right? Each voice has its own DNA. They will tell you that on these scientific channels and these documentaries and so. Make use of it. That is yours. Be proud of it. Be thankful for it. Then associate yourself with the right people. People who have been there, who have done that, who know, and who can help you along. And a certain amount of humility, not false. The phony humility is just as harmful as arrogance. But be genuinely aware of the fact this can take me some time, or I'm having a problem in a certain area. Let me take my time with it. Let me learn from each stumble, from each fall. Once upon a time, I would be in a stage in newscasting. If I read a bad headline, the rest of my newscast would collapse. I'm beyond that. I'm past that
Right.
because I've worked my way through it. I've been helped through it. So that now I can sit in a studio on my own. Again, thanks to people like Heinzo, I not only read news, I operate for my
Right.
own newscasts. Okay, I push all my own clips, my own commercials. Without the right people there at the right time, that would never,
Never have been
happened.
possible.
I can slip up with a headline at the beginning, pick myself up, and just keep moving on. You make a mistake, take up that mistake,
persevere.
go on with it. So never think that you can be short of that or you're short of that. It can take some time, but you will get there. And we are all, no matter how experienced we are, still learning.
Right, still room for improvement. Indeed, that has been a very good advice for us, and not just for people who are in the media, but people in general. Do not let your stumbling blocks keep you back. You know, there are times when you're down and out, but you always need to persevere. And I have a little saying that I use these days: propelled by perseverance. And I think it's a good one to live by.
Amen.
So thank you, Mr. Julien, for being with us today. And once again, this is Kenroy Baptiste TV, and you're watching Grenadian Personality. We had a wonderful time. I certainly did. So it was really nice meeting you, and all the best. Thank you.